So today we're going to discuss our newest feature, which is campaign optimization within the Nexoya platform, and we'll explain a bit how it works. So today I will be the moderator, and Marco Strasser, which is our CTO and co-founder of Nexoya, will present it to you. So in the end, we'll have a Q&A session. You can ask your question in the bottom right. You click on the question mark, and then we'll answer in the end. Also, if you want to reduce our icon, you can click on the bottom right and make it smaller. So I will let Marco introduce himself now. So have a good webinar.
Good morning or good afternoon, everybody. Welcome also from my side. I'm Marco Hochstrasser. I'm the co-founder and CTO of Nexoya, and I will running this webinar today with you and give you some insights in our biggest and most exciting feature we launched this year, a couple of weeks ago. And we're very glad that so many people signed up for this webinar and all around the world are joining today. So we're very excited on this one. I myself, I have an engineering degree, software engineering. I was studying software engineering and did my bachelor also there, and then was in the US for a couple of years. Right now came back to Switzerland, and as a CTO responsible for the product marketing as well as the strategy of Nexoya. So having that said, with no further ado, let's jump into the topic. So first, I will give you an intro. What's actually the problem we're trying to solve with our campaign optimization, and what is the main purpose of it? Then we will right ahead jump into the tool. I will show you how it works. We'll show you with some live data how this actually works and how it can be applied, potentially also to your campaigns. Then we go a little bit deep dive in like, how does it really work? What do actually we do, and what does Nexoya do in prediction and optimizations? How and why is it so successful? And last but not least, we go into benefits and Q&A session where you can answer or ask questions. As Lauren already mentioned, you can ask questions as we speak, and we will then capture them at the end of this webinar. Good, then let me jump in. I mean, what we found actually when we started Nexoya 2.5 years ago is that most marketeers have 10 or more digital channels they manage in average. And managing means somehow you need people to take action on social media. You need to have search engine optimization. You need to, all your digital channels are very excessive and also tell you what happens. So every channel tells you what actually happens. But the problem is the data is locked in the channel. So for instance, Facebook doesn't tell you very easily what happens on LinkedIn and the other way around. So you have a very hard time to get an overview of what's actually happening and compare, especially compare what's happening. And the second pain point is obviously when you cannot compare things, it's very inefficient to do campaigning, right? You have a low return on ad spend because it's hard to get the CPCs together, really combine them, get the real data, not just the averages out of it. And the problem is really there's a huge complexity in the system. And last but not least, what we see in the market quite often is you kind of lose the trust of your partners. And with partners, I mean, obviously, you lose the trust of your agency because they cannot transparently tell you what's happening. But you also lose sometimes the trust of your publishers because they make mistakes and then they reverse data and then you have a hard time to access this data. And this is the problem we are in, and we are all in, everybody who does digital marketing today. And the channels are not going away, they're growing. But actually what we would need to have is so easy, right? We would first need to aggregate the data, just get all the data in one place and to get easy insights what's happening. The second thing which we would need is centralized campaigning. If we would have a place where we have all data in, then we could also see which campaign is performing how good, which campaign gives us which return ad spends, and also allows us to actually use artificial intelligence on this data, right? Having the data spread, we cannot do it. When the data will be together, we can suddenly have the option to do something like that. And last but not least, high transparency and simplicity. When you have all the data in one place and all of your team can access it easily, then you also have full transparency and you know what's going on. And yes, that's basically the problem statement, so to say. And that's also the reason why we built Nexoya. With the Nexoya platform, we gather data from all these different channels. We are right now connecting 35 adapters from Salesforce to social media to web analytics like Adobe or Google Analytics, and including obviously all the digital publishings or ads and platforms they're out there in the market. With that, we do simplified reporting, so you can make simple report, getting data together, including data such as weather or currency, which might be interesting for you. We do simple KPI monitoring, so you can monitor certain KPIs, and you can do predictions on campaigns and KPIs. So we can tell you how much likely it is that your campaign will be successful. And our newest thing and our kind of newest release is what I mentioned already, is the campaign optimization, where we not just tell you how your campaign will go forward, but actually we tell you how much more revenue you can get, or how much more return on ad spend you can get by moving money around wisely in an upcoming period. And I will show you now exactly what that means. But it's basically taking all these other capabilities which we built in the last 2 years together into one feature, which gives you the full power of artificial intelligence in that world. Cool. So with that, I directly jump into the demo, and I will go into the system here, and you see now my screen. This is basically the Nexoya platform. We are here on an example tenant, and you see here a dashboard where you see on one side your team, you see a couple of notifications. There were some anomalies which were found, so the KPI monitoring system I mentioned before. And last but not least, you see here the KPIs and the data from all different places gathered together. You see here's Google search impressions, and then Google Analytics data. There's Twitter followers, Facebook impressions, but also things like feels like temperature in Germany right now, which is fairly cold. And obviously also third-party or primary data systems such as the SAP ecosystem here, an example, SAP Marketing Cloud, which allows you to connect third-party and first-party data. But it's just as an overview. This is the dashboard. I actually don't want to talk about the dashboard. I want to talk about campaigns. So when we go to campaigns, here are three campaigns which were created before, which are running. They have certain schedule date and they have a budget assigned. I will now create a new campaign and show you how this could be like. For instance, we do a flight campaign on 2021. So we have a short flight which goes over Christmas, which is focused on Xmas hats. So I want to sell some Xmas hats, right? And we can say which duration it runs, let's say from November to end of January. And we can define the primary goal for this campaign. So the idea here is that right now, when you create a new campaign, multi-channel campaign, you create campaigns in Facebook, in LinkedIn, Twitter, and so forth. But actually, it's one overarching campaign, right? So you want to sell Xmas hats over New Year. And with the idea is that you create one goal, which you define the overarching campaign, and then assign all these sub-campaigns to that. So for instance, if I really want to sell Xmas hats, then I can say conversion is my goal. Right? I can then go forward. Just to mention, obviously this time period can be flexible, it can also be extended. That doesn't really matter, right? When I go forward, then I can select the content I would like to add. And content in this sense is everything, every campaign, every asset I have in the system. So you already see here, we have LinkedIn campaigns, Facebook campaigns, Google campaigns. I can see it, for instance, here for all the red campaigns. I take these three into consideration. You will also be able to add from, as I said, right now, all the assets, including ad sets or ads, if you want. Right now, in this example, just take campaigns. And here is, for instance, a search campaign, a social media campaign, another social media campaign. It can also be from YouTube or wherever. We gather right now 9 different sources of ad platforms. Good. When we go to the next step, then basically it asks for a budget. So the idea is that you can enter here your media plan. So we say we have 30K budget for each channel planned. Obviously, this is just the plan which we have. The model will dynamically tell us what's better or what's the better assignment, right? So this is just kind of telling the model, hey, this is the numbers we have, and this is when we go. Good. With that, I finish this campaign. I see whoop, the campaign is created. I can go into this campaign, it is newly created campaign, and I will directly see, okay, it's from November till end of January. I see the performance until now. So it gathered directly from all these campaigns I signed, the respective conversion, and summed them up into one view. So I saw starting November until now, I have 38,000 conversions, which came from Facebook and Google. So you see LinkedIn, we didn't track conversion, it seems, so it directly didn't calculate them. We can see which content was assigned. So we see, for instance, here, Google search, Facebook, and LinkedIn. We can also add different content. We can say, okay, let's also add this, I don't know, add another campaign here. And then this is dynamically added to the system, and then also the model will be updated. I also see the budget here. So you see here the budget obviously is fairly stable because I just gave it flat. But I could basically adjust here the budget and say, okay, starting December we have a higher budget because we want to sell more Xmas hats, and then in January we go down again. This can be very easily done by just editing basically each week. So I can say, okay, here I have a lower budget this week, and that this will be adopted accordingly. This is important information for the AI models to know when should we spend how much money, or how should it be distributed. Right? So when you tell the model how much money you have and you want to spend, it can also estimate and predict the success of the campaign. So that's all about the setup of a campaign. Now, what we usually do when we onboard someone, we basically define when do we run the optimizations. So usually when you have bigger campaigns like that, where you spend 100K over 2 months, we usually propose to run out weekly. So then we configure the weekly run. The run itself takes 1 to 3 hours, depending on the size of the campaign. So there's a massive computation behind it. So I will now show you the results, not on this campaign, but on another campaign. So I shortly switch to campaigns, and I prepared here a push on conversion campaign, which runs until the end of the year. And you see here the similar view. You see we have 100,000 conversions until end of the year. But you saw here that actually 1 week ago, we did run an optimization, and the model found out that we have a 33.48% of potential found in this campaign when we do certain changes. So now I can click on that. And you see here, we jump on the optimization tab, which now tells you, well, you can maximize your conversions by 33%, or in retrospective, 800 conversions if you do certain changes. We can open it, and now we see all my campaigns, which are here. And what happened in the back is basically the model took these campaigns, which we gave them, and it predicted the performance for next week. So we predicted that the campaign red will have very poor performance next week. Poor performance meaning it's very inefficient. So the CPC is high or has a high tendency next week. So it could be that the CPC was good last week, but then has a very strong tendency going bad. Or in this campaign where conversion is the goal, obviously, the CPI has highest weights. So for instance, it's very expensive to get new conversions. So then predicted performance is bad. On the other side, this Facebook campaign green will have very good performance. So it could be that it suddenly got more efficient, meaning it got very inexpensive to get conversions over this Facebook green campaign. And then you see the model basically proposes to change these budgets, right? $7 away here, $10 away here per day, $5 more, and $11 more here. So it kind of shifts budget around, not cross-channel only, but actually cross campaigns. And we could even go one step lower and move budgets around ad sets. That's all possible and can be configured when onboarding. As a customer, you can then also see the details. So you see here the details, for instance. We see each allocation. So that's the proposal of the model to allocate so much money. So you see here we had one campaign which had $100 per day. And this is the proposal for each day. Now you see this in this example. These days always have the same volume. This is if the seasonality in the week is not a clear pattern, the model decides to flat out the week. If suddenly the model realizes, well, Monday is very good, Tuesday is not, then you will see that in the changes of the budget and the proposals of the models accordingly. And then obviously you also see the expected performance. So for instance, you see the expected CPM, CPC, and all this information here nicely shown. Today, when we onboard customers, we basically then, after the first optimization, we have a call where we go through these results and also explain how they came like that, and if there are configuration which we need to change or weights which need to be adopted. yes, that's basically it. That's our amazing feature, which went live recently. We are already now working on that. We not just show you the optimization like that. So here, basically, we show you what to do. We give you an advice, but actually, we also help you to do it. So very soon there will be a button here showing apply this change, and then we will directly change the budget accordingly to your to the advices or to your manual intervention in that. Also important to mention, everywhere in the tool you have these little question marks. Here, for instance, how it's made. So you have detailed information how actually this was done, and or you also have that in the conversions. For instance, here you see an example in the content where it explains, okay, what is actually conversion rate and why is it to track and things like that. So our goal is really that you should have full transparency of what's going on, and you should have a very, very easy way to get all your things together and have a transparent overview of what's going on. And at last but not least, use artificial intelligence to really get more out of your ad spend and of your ad dollar at the end of the day. Good. I don't go through the other features of the platform right now. I mean, there are report features, and there are also a funnel, so you can display a funnel like that. But I don't go into that right now. This webinar is mainly about this feature, campaign optimization, which we saw just now. And with that, I would jump into, this was our short demo, and I would jump into the deep dive and tell you actually what really happened. Right? What does happen in this 1 to 3 hours in the back, and what do we do, and why is it so successful? So we saw before, I already kind of took out a little quote from one of our customers. CSS is the largest health insurance in Switzerland, and they were able to increase the return on ad spend by 30%. We also have now just stories right now. We got in a recent exercise, we got 70% over a period of 3 months. So there's a lot of and I want to explain a little bit more why is it working so well and what's actually the secrets behind the sauce, right? And for that, let's think about predictions first. I mentioned very briefly that we do predictions, right? But what does it actually mean? So what you see here is, for example, impressions. Historically, impressions which someone got. So you had an ad, you spent a couple of $100, and you got 400 or 500 impressions per day. See, so this is we call that time series data. So you basically have data amount of impressions per day. And there are different ways on now how to predict what's coming in the future, right? Very often in marketing is use the average. So you look at the average impressions you had over the past and then just roll it out in the future. That's a very simplistic model. Another way is trend analysis, so that you basically check what is the trend of the line and then just go it forward. You can do that with very simple Google Sheet, right? And then more sophisticated is how kind of AI models do it. So they not just take the trend and the average as input, but actually they try to emulate what's happened in the past and check if this kind of patterns will reflect in the future, okay? This is kind of how prediction is done in general. So you basically take past data and use it for predicting the future. But the question is always, how accurate are they? And for the AI models, what we obviously use in the ad spending world is the budget as important indicator, right? So when the budget changes, your impression changes. It's a very easy relation, which the model very clearly sees. And first, what we do is basically we tell the AI model, hey, here is your impressions and here is your budget. Try to figure out, based on the history, how it evolved, or try to figure out based on the history how it will evolve in the future, right? So we give this data into the model and we tell the model to train it. That's kind of how you call it in the AI space. You say train the model. Then as a second step, you tell the model, well, apart from just training this data, also take into consideration additional data, which might interfere or influence your data points. Something like weather, you see here, sun, things like that. So we also in our system, when you used Nexoya, a couple of customers also signing up for this. When you use Nexoya so far, you were able to implement weather data like average temperature, amount of sun hours. This can also be then put in the model, and the model reflects that and sees, okay, wait, when we have a lot of rain, does the CPM drop or does it go up? And how local is this change? And the AI model very quickly finds if there is a relation or not and implements that into the model if it's relevant for this. Last but not least, also holidays like Easter, Christmas, which is right ahead for all of us, or depending where you are, between 24th and 6th, 7th of January, obviously. But this can be taken into account by the model and can be figured out by the data it sees. And last but not least, then after we trained the model, we give the model the media plan. So we tell the model what I did before in the tool. We tell them, okay, this is the budget for next week. This is how much we want to spend. And this is how much we did spend. So brackets open, you can also do scenarios. What would have happened if I spent more? Brackets closed, let's go in there. But we give the model the media plan to the model. And then with that, the model basically predicts the future. It predicts the future impression and also the expected CPM per campaign. So basically the model predicts, okay, based on what I saw in the past, on the budget I know, and the relation between budget and impressions, how much will I get in the future? And this then gives us things like an average CPM or an average CPM, average CPC and things like that. So this is a very simplistic explanation of what we do, obviously. It's a little bit more complex, and also the models, how they get trained and things like that. But I want to give you a little bit of insight in what's actually happening. Good. And obviously, you might say, well, before you actually optimize for conversions, right? You didn't optimize for compression. So how does this work? And the answer is very simple. We actually use funnel and attribution for that, like every other marketeer, right? So we know that impressions are needed for clicks, and clicks are needed for conversions to a certain degree. And there are multi-channel attributions and things like that. And in fact, what we do when we do such a prediction you saw before, which was an impression prediction, where we take budget impressions and then calculate the expected impression in the future, we not just do it once, but we do that for every metric we have on the respective campaigns. So we do that for consideration, and we also do that for commitment. Here as an example. So we have clients which have 7 or 8 different funnel steps. You know, when you have conversion A, B, C, or you have a entry into for instance, insurance calculator, and then or a basket, and then you add data to the basket. So we have different goals, different steps, different conversion levels. This is all very easy to modulate in this system. So what we then do is basically we first predict the awareness, and then give the results of this prediction into the model and tell him, okay, now predict the clicks, but take into consideration there were some impressions. And with that, the model figures out what is the right amount of impression it needs from which campaign to be modeled out statistically correct to get more conversions at the end. And this is then basically a loop. When you have 7 funnels, it's an endless 7, well, it's not endless, but it's 7-step chained prediction model. And then obviously after these prediction models, so these prediction levels which are happening, what we then do is we now have a lot of predictions on the table, right? So you have to imagine when we take 10 campaigns and let's say 100K of investment over a certain period, then we suddenly have 1 million predictions on the table, right? Because combinations of it, and you can try it out. What we then do is we basically give it into an optimization model, which is simplified, or it's not actually simplified, it's a fairly complex, but it's another model which then tries to figure out, okay, which of this prediction combination is now the best to give the most value out of the budget which is spent. So basically we take all the predictions, all these million predictions, and then try each one of each, or not each one of each, but try, there is some simplification to that, obviously. There's some algorithms to make that faster, but try the best combination, search the best combination, which gives us the most return on ad spend at the end of the day. And then we reallocate budget. So we tell you, hey, you should reallocate your budget, and this is how you should do it to get the best out of it. That's the whole story. And then after a week, we redo it, and we do it again. And these models are fully automated, so the configuration, depending on how complex the model is, needs some additional. If you have a very simple funnel, then it's very straightforward. If you have a complex model, it needs some more custom configuration. But then the model runs every week and gives you the predictions upfront, how you can get more. And then this is, for instance, how this looks like, right? Here, an example of an actual customer we are allowed to also show. So here you see, for instance, realized is what he really got. and optimized is what the model would have gotten more. So you see in the beginning that the model was actually not really good performing, but then suddenly after he had enough data, so brackets open, we only start after 8 days. This is exactly these 8 days, because we want to see 1 week. So when you have a very short campaigns, this doesn't really make sense. It only makes sense when the model has enough data. And then you saw suddenly that the optimization went up and the customer could increase conversions by 24% within 1 week only. And this is then how it looks. I mean, I showed you this before in the tool, and we're constantly evolving this. Here you already see a little visual upgrade with some, nice graphs and shadows and things like that. This will be our next step going forward. And as I already said or mentioned, also we want to automate that step, that you not just get a proposal, but that you can directly say, okay, do it for me, and directly change this budget accordingly. So that was a short deep dive. I hope it was fine. I see everybody's still in the line. I see more people also joined during that. So I hope it was not too deep and it was good on a good level to get a clear understanding of what's actually happening and how campaign optimization actually works in such a field as we are, and how it can really thrive and give you way much more return on ad spend at the end. An interesting thing is also if you do that 1 week and then you shift the budget, right? We had a couple of tests where we said, okay, now everything is fine, right? Now we can leave it running. But the fact is that the market is changing. The publishers, especially publishers which have bidding structures such as Facebook, Google, or Twitter, and all the social medias, they have a bidding way. So if someone bids more for a certain target audience, then the price increase. So the velocity of these systems, and each of these systems give such optimization a big room to optimize. So every week, so we saw, for instance, customers where we moved money into Google 1 week and then suddenly moved it out again because it got expensive. And we assume other competitors went into the field and took certain keywords. So that's why suddenly the CPM was very high. And so this flexibility is very hard by human brain and abstraction to figure out what's actually happening. But for an AI model, that's capable and that's possible to do. I will shortly go through the benefits you actually can get. What you can increase, right? You can clearly increase your ability for the team to decide based on data, because it's the first time you have the data really here and you have proposals and you have predictions for next week. So you're growing your knowledge on what's actually happening. We have a lot of customers which have the pain of their big campaigns are running, but they don't really know what's going on. And it starts with data aggregation. And the second thing, obviously, is enable automation and get higher return on ad spend, right? Increasing your ad spend or return on ad spend by 70 or more % in 1, 2, 3 months is very high, and it's basically a no-brainer to start doing and trying it. Last but not least, improve collaboration with partners. I mean, we saw many, especially agencies, being reluctant in the beginning to start working with it. But suddenly, if you have the same perspective as your customer, it just gives more value to both of you. You can talk about the same content, you can talk about the same data, so it really helps. Last but not least, you're fully compliant, so we don't gather any personalized data. We only gather statistics, math, numbers, so meaning you're fully compliant with ePrivacy and GDPR laws. We also work with many insurances and banks, so that's kind of the one important aspect. What you will reduce, obviously, we have less efforts and reduce cost in performance marketing, because you don't need to go through all the tools and click around. You see everything in one place, which is kind of the reporting side, but you also then get optimized and really get something out of it. You don't have any inefficient allocations anymore because dynamics in the market, and you also have no more chaos in your data. You eliminate the complexity. And also one important thing, you don't have a lock-in into some partner's tech stack, right? Especially we see when you work with larger partners or agencies, they usually have their own tech stack and everything needs to be in there, which gives you a lock-in as a customer because you don't have this data. You don't have access to the data, and you just have nice PDF reports, which are beautiful, but at the end you will need some more data insights. So that's kind of an overview of pains and benefits on that one. And last but not least, shortly, kind of track record. So we were just very happy to onboard Swisscom. With Swisscom, we were able to increase 30% or more than 30% of clicks. They had a consideration click campaign. Also, Generali, one of a big customer of us, where we achieved 24% in the first range. We now just did a second flight or always on campaign, which is even better. I cannot talk to it yet, but I need to wait a couple of weeks. But there we did a lot. Also CSS is already mentioned, and Emmy is a Swiss milk producer, which also works with Nexoya and has primary and third-party data merged. So they have SAP marketing data, and then which are primary data, and then third-party data, just as ad spend. So this is a little bit overview of our what we reached so far. And yeah, the next steps or call to action, as you say in marketing, right? Start your journey to become data-driven, right? So we offer onboarding as a free trial if you're interested in campaign optimization. We're happy to talk. We are very happy to onboard you and tell you a little bit more about how this can change the way how you work, and this can simplify and at the end of the day give you totally different return on ad spend on your activities. And who are we? Who is Nexoya? We are 16 employees already. We are fast growing with high customer focus, so that's kind of our goal. And one important aspect, especially for European customers, is that we host everything in Switzerland. We are in Swiss data centers only, which is especially for finance sector, obviously very, very relevant. We have offices in Zurich and Belgrade. I'm actually right now in the office, but I'm the only one. So Corona is totally fine. But obviously, usually right now everybody's at home, but we have in Zurich and Belgrade, we have places. And we are in many of these partner programs. We also right now are in the AIB and work there with several partners to look into how we can not what we just did, not just have some quotes, but also have some proof. So we work together with university as well as partners in the AIB to think on how we can prove what we actually do. And that's basically it. I want to give you a short overview, or you want to give you a short insight into what we built, what we're so proud of, and as well as how it works, or actually why it works so nicely. And this would be a nice transition into Q&A. And I see there are a couple of questions, Lauren, right?
Yes, thank you, Marco, for your presentation. It was very insightful. So before we wrap up, we'll go through the questions that you have. We already have several ones. So let's start with the first one. So from Peter Metzinger, can you show the call again? So yes, we've been through it before.
I guess you mean the campaign goal, Peter?
Yes,
right?
I think so too.
Yeah, so basically, so on one side, when you create a campaign, you can define a main goal here, right? And the idea is that this gives us a simplified view on the campaign. So we have a main goal, which is awareness, consideration, conversion. And you see here, point. So meaning there can be some metrics, and then if these metrics are found from us, then they are directly targeted. So the idea is that it's a simplified attribution setup, right? So you can select consideration, and then we take clicks or interactions, or you can say conversion, then we take conversions or custom conversions from Facebook or things like that, or goals from Google Analytics. Or you can take awareness, and then we take impressions or reach. After that, so when we go through our Xmas hat campaign again, you then see here this goal, and we will be able to change it together. So we can say, we don't want to have conversions here, but we actually want to focus on clicks, or we don't want to have impressions. Actually, I think we have an impression campaign here. Let me check. Yeah, let's do this prototype small. This is an impression. Oh no, it's not. Sorry. I think this is an impression campaign. Otherwise, I will create one very quickly. Yeah, this is impression campaign, for instance, right? So here, you see here that all these three channels, it all took impressions. But now I could change here and say, no, I don't want to optimize on impressions. I want to optimize on reach. And then you could change that here. I hope this answers your question, Peter.
Yes, if it's not clear, you can always ask a second question. Feel free. So I see that some of you are still typing. So we'll just proceed to the second question. Thank you. We'll proceed to the second question. Meanwhile, you can write all your questions in the Q&A box. So second one is, how much time does it take to onboard a customer and to activate Nexoya?
Yes, so basically to onboard on our standard platform, that's very fast, right? We usually do like an onboarding where we kind of a guided onboarding. So we do a short call together and then guide you through the steps. Technically, it can be self-service, but we we just want to guide you through and explain you the platform a little bit. It takes roughly half an hour. Then when we do the first optimization, usually we take another half an hour to discuss, okay, what campaigns are there? Are there flights? Are they sensible? Does it make sense to take them into account or not? And then decide also together, or make a short check. Are the conversions really gathered nicely? Because if you have campaigns which are not tracked correctly, then the model cannot do anything. There is bad data in, bad data out, right? So that's always important. So we do a short check, and then we can start. Having that said, with 1-2 weeks of warm up, we can basically ramp you up and then start optimizing your campaigns.
All right, thank you. Question from Nishi Lauti. Would this be the right way to ask a care-related question?
Sure, feel free.
Free to ask.
To join Nexoya or general career related. No, sure, feel free. Nishi, we're very happy to take your question.
All right, while waiting for your question, you're typing.
Yes. Is there another one in the meanwhile, Lauren?
Yes, there is one. So what would be the minimum requirements for a campaign to be optimized within Nexoya?
Yes, so one campaign being one campaign over multiple channels, right? So you can have 5-6 channels where this campaign is running. But we can basically, when we say one campaign, we usually say if the budget, depends a little bit on where you're from, but if the budget is around 10K per month, then it really makes sense. Right? Below, it's because you need to change the campaign and you need to make adjustments and things like that. It starts to get hard to really get enough out of it, right? If you have above 10K per month of investment, then it makes total sense, and it's a very, very, very good way to do it. But it's kind of the one of the boundaries. And the second one is also that if you have less than 3 channels to manage, then we usually propose that it doesn't make sense, right? Because the models are very strong when they can move money around. So if you have many different campaigns, many different channels, then really the model can thrive and can get a lot out of it, right? So we had customers where we could gain 90% more in 1 week just because they have enough assets and enough capacity to update. Good.
All right, thank you. So we have the second part of the question. So Nishi was wondering if it was required to have quantitative tech background to join a data-driven marketing team.
Yes, you mean in general, right, Nishi? So I would say the what you see here and what we did in the detail and the programming, right? It's not needed to join a data-driven marketing team in general, because that's what engineers do, and that's what we abstracted here onto the level. On the other side, knowing these metrics and knowing what's happening in the back and being able to abstract the concepts you just learned, I believe strongly is very important for the future and for the kind of the future data-driven marketeer and for kind of this profile you're aiming for, right? So from my point of view, it's very important that you know how things work, but you don't need to be able to program them, right? But you should have a good understanding of statistics and kind of how it works and have a good fundament to be able to think about such solutions, be able to think about how you automate stuff and what works and what not. I hope this answers your question. So I don't think you need a degree or something in quantitative or tech, but it really helps to be able to understand the concepts, how things work. And a side note, we have an amazing blog which has a lot of articles on this topic as well. Good. So I think we are already over time. If there are no more questions, Lauren, right? Or are there?
Nishi is typing. Okay. Thank you so much. I will have to go through the blog. Yes, feel free to go through the blog, and also if you want to see more, we have our social medias when you can find the latest news. Or anyways, you can feel free to ask us questions in the mails.
Perfect. Okay, good. So then, thank you very much again for joining this webinar, and wish you Merry Christmas and happy holidays. And I hope we see you again in some different parts of this ecosystem.
Thank you for joining, and you will receive a video copy of this webinar in your mail soon.
Bye, guys. Bye-bye.
Have a great day.